So you think about moving to the Bronx? In this video, I'm gonna talk about the pros and cons, the good and bad of living in the Bronx. Should you move to the Bronx? Should you move elsewhere to maybe like Queens, Nassau County, or Suffolk County? And I'm getting after it right now. If this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything about living in the Bronx, subscribe below, tap the bell for notifications so you can be the first to know about the current market in the Bronx. My name is Cornell Smith with eXp Realty. We get calls and emails every day from people just like you looking for help on making a move to the Bronx, and we absolutely love it. Whether you're moving in 9 days or 90 days, feel free to give us a call, shoot us a text, or send us an email. All the information in the description below so it can help you make a smooth move to the Bronx. So as I mentioned before, I'm talking about the pros and cons of the Bronx. The Bronx is in the northernmost portion of New York City. It has a population of about 1.43 million, making it the fourth largest borough in New York City. So in terms of borough sizes, in terms of population, the borough with the highest population is Brooklyn, followed by Queens, Manhattan, the Bronx fourth, and Staten Island, often forgotten, is the last in terms of population size. The Bronx is also home to Yankee Stadium, the Bronx Zoo, and Botanical Gardens. It's very diverse and it's rapidly growing. Some of the benefits, pros of living in the Bronx include public transportation access, location, entertainment and things to do, the culture and diversity. Some of the cons of living in the Bronx include the urban feel, if that's not something for you, the cost of living, the traffic, and the air quality and pollution in certain parts of the Bronx. In the Bronx, there are 70 subway stations, so there's plenty of options, subway options for people to use to get to places like Brooklyn and Manhattan. You know, the number train options like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and trains like the B and D. And then also in the Bronx, it's slightly easier to park in the Bronx than in other boroughs like Manhattan or Brooklyn. Another benefit of living in the Bronx is its location. So the Bronx is the northernmost portion of New York City. To the west and southwest of the Bronx is Manhattan, aka the city. So the southwestern portion of the Bronx actually is very close to the uptown northern section of Manhattan. There are certain areas where you could, walk from the Bronx to Manhattan via a bridge. It's only separated by like the Harlem River. And the funny thing, there's this neighborhood, Marble Hill, where both borders technically Manhattan and the Bronx. Marble Hill is technically connected to the Bronx, but it's officially part of Manhattan. That's a funny thing. So yeah, you have Manhattan to the south and southwest of the Bronx. To the south of the Bronx is my home, Queens, home of the Mets. So I'm not sure if you really fond of Queens if you're a big Yankees fan, because the Mets there, never mind. And then to the north of the Bronx is Westchester, which you can consider a New York City suburb. If you're in certain areas of the North Bronx, you could pretty much walk to certain areas of Westchester. It's very close. As I mentioned before, there are 70 subway stations in the Bronx. There are also MTA city buses to get around. Major highways in the Bronx include the Bruckner Expressway, the Cross Bronx Expressway, the Hutchinson River Expressway, and the Hutchinson River Parkway. While this is not in effect yet, it is expected by 2027 that the Metro North will build more trains to effectively connect the Bronx and Westchester, which will make travel between the Bronx and Westchester a bit more easier. Another pro of living in the Bronx is the entertainment and the things to do. So the thing the Bronx might be known most for is the New York Yankees that play in the Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. So the New York Yankees are the most winningest franchise of all time in North America, with 27 world title championships. And I'm not much of a baseball fan myself, even though I have the hat. Though I hear Aaron Judge is doing big things and breaking home run records. The Bronx is home to 1,200 plus parks, playgrounds, and recreational facilities. This is a little known fact, but out of all the 5 boroughs, the Bronx has the most green space and park space. About a quarter, 25% of the land in the Bronx is parkland. The Bronx is also home to the Bronx Zoo, which is one of the largest zoos in the entire United States. It has about 265 acres of land and houses 6,000 plus species. The Bronx is also home to the New York Botanical Gardens. It's a 52-acre garden home to different plants, herbs, flowers, as well as the Steinhardt Conservatory. In the Bronx, there's also the Van Cortlandt Golf Course, a landmark course from 1895. It's recognized as the oldest public golf course in the entire United States. The Bronx is also home to Pelham Bay Park, which is the largest park in New York City, actually 3 times the size of probably the most popular park in New York City, Central Park. It's home to miles of bridle paths, Orchard Beach, the Bartow Pell Mansion, 2 golf courses, and a breathtaking 13-mile shoreline that hugs the Long Island Sound. It has barbecue areas, basketball courts, baseball fields, football fields, bocce courts, bicycling greenways, areas for fishing, running tracks, nature centers, and etc. Many things to do in that large Pelham Bay Park. The Universal Hip Hop Museum. So this is expected to officially open in 2024. Currently, the museum curators have rolling exhibitions at their temporary location at the Bronx Terminal Market. Culture. The Bronx is, the birthplace of hip hop culture. On August 11th, 1973, DJ Kool Herc hosted the first hip-hop jam at the Rec Center at 1520 Sedgwick Avenue. Happy 50 years, half a century to hip-hop, rap music, and hip-hop culture. International art form respected worldwide, residents of the Bronx. Notable rappers and hip-hop figures from the Bronx include KRS-One, Fat Joe, Big Pun, Melly Mel, Swizz Beatz, Lord Finesse, Grandmaster Flash, French Montana, Funkmaster Flex, Remy Ma, Grandmaster Caz, Cardi B, Ice Spice, A Boogie, Don Q, D Nice, and Lil TJ. So don't take this as me ranking them. This is just naming the names, because I don't want to say, I'm not saying such and such is better than other people. Just naming some of the names of the notable figures from the Bronx, current and historical legends. So the Bronx is also a major plus of living in the Bronx is, the diversity. It's a melting pot of different cultures in the Bronx. For instance, there's a significant presence of Italian culture and cuisine throughout the Bronx. Hispanic, Latin culture is very omnipresent throughout the Bronx. West African culture is also omnipresent throughout the Bronx. I myself am part Sierra Leonean. My mother was born in Freetown, Sierra Leone. I once heard somewhere that the Bronx either has the largest concentration of Nigerians outside of Nigeria or the largest concentration of Nigerians in North America, something to that effect. Another benefit of living in the Bronx is the economy. According to the New York City Economic Development Corporation, over the past decade, the Bronx has experienced record-setting economic growth. There are more businesses in the last decade than they were combined in the previous 4 decades in the Bronx, and the unemployment rate has fallen to record lows. Healthcare, leisure, hospitality, and retail are the major industries and sectors that drive the Bronx economy. The Bronx has been the fastest growing county in New York in the entire New York state since 2010 and was the only borough that didn't experience a negative net job loss during the Great Recession from 2007 to 2009. So let's get into some of the downsides. So one potential downside could be the urban feel. So for the most part, the Bronx has a dense urban feel. There are some pockets of the Bronx that are more suburban. These areas would be in more like the north or eastern portions of the Bronx. So these would be areas like Riverdale, Country Club, Throgsnet, Baychester, Morris Park. According to niche.com, 80% of residents in the Bronx rent their homes. In the Bronx, it wouldn't be uncommon to live in high-rise apartment buildings, and there are also 50 plus New York City Housing Authority public housing units, aka NYCHA. The Bronx is pretty walkable, and you could pretty much walk to, depending on where you live, walk to everywhere, to all the amenities you need like food, shopping, restaurant, bars, playgrounds, parks, etc. You don't necessarily need a car to get around. In a city that never sleeps, it wouldn't be uncommon for you to experience your neighbors playing loud music all times in the night and early mornings. Another downside con of living in the Bronx is the cost of living. So living in the Bronx is considerably cheaper than living in Manhattan, though slightly higher than living in the other boroughs of Brooklyn and Queens. So the real estate costs in the Bronx are considerably cheaper than living in Brooklyn and Queens, but because of transportation costs, the cost of living is a little bit higher in the Bronx and Queens and Brooklyn. The cost of living in the Bronx is also higher than northern neighboring county of Westchester, and it's a little bit more expensive living in the Bronx than in Long Island. And then the Bronx is more expensive compared to New York State on average and most of the United States on average. Another con of living in the Bronx is a crowded lifestyle. So being that it's densely populated, that's a symptom. It can feel crowded to people who don't like urban environments and don't want to feel like people are on top of each other. So think about something like this. The Bronx has a population of about 1.43 million people in a 42 square mile area. Compare that with the West Coast city in California, San Diego, has a similar population of about 1.43 million, but they're in about a 372.4 square mile area. So just think about that. Another con or negative of living in the Bronx is the traffic. According to INRIX.com, in 2017, the Cross Bronx Expressway was voted as the most congested road in the United States, specifically from 6A to 2. On average, it was said that drivers wasted about 86 hours every year on this particular stretch. So this is not too uncommon or dissimilar from the rest of New York City. Pretty much for the most part, you're going to experience a lot of traffic, especially during peak rush hour and traffic times. The average one-way commute in the Bronx is 44.2 minutes according to bestplaces.net. The US average one-way commute time is 26.4 minutes. In the Bronx, 23% of people drive to work alone, 4.4% of people carpool with others, 3.1% of people work from home, and 60.2% of people take public mass transit to work. Another downside of living in the Bronx is the air quality and pollution. A CBSNews.com report exposed that the Bronx has some of the highest asthma rates in New York City. The South Bronx has some of the worst air pollution in the entire United States. The community is surrounded by heavy industry and a network of very congested highways. South Bronx neighborhoods like Hunts Point and Mont Haven are known as Asthma Alley. NYC Health reported that in 2021, emergency room visits for children with asthma are 20 times higher in certain Bronx neighborhoods than other New York City boroughs, and these neighborhoods are mainly in the South Bronx. Experts say pollution from trucks is a contributing factor. So there you have it. Those are the pros and cons of living in the Bronx, New York. Did I make my case as to why I should move to the Bronx, or do the good outweigh the bad? So some of the positives, pluses of living in the Bronx include public transportation access, its location, entertainment, amenities, things to do, the culture, diversity, and economy. Some of the downsides of living in the Bronx include the urban density. That might be a downside for some. The cost of living, the crowded, dense lifestyle, the traffic, and the air quality pollution in some areas of the Bronx. If this is your first time to the channel, you want to know everything about living in the Bronx, New York, then subscribe below, tap the bell for notifications so you can be the first to know about the current market in the Bronx. My name is Cornell Smith with eXp Realty. We get calls and emails every day from people just like you looking for help on making a move to the Bronx, and we absolutely love it. Whether you're moving in 9 days or 90 days, feel free to give us a call, shoot us a text, or send us an email. All the information in the description below so it can help you make a smooth move to the Bronx. This concludes my video on the pros and cons, the good or bad of living in the Bronx. Signing off.